Hey guys, this is Bjerga talking. I am the host of Sound Connections. This is going to be a podcast about founders in the music industry, about how to empower them and to educate them. This first episode is introducing my founding team from my company, Capella Entertainment. I hope you enjoy it. Hey guys, this is Sound Connections. It's our first episode.
Woo!
Yeah, that's kind of exciting. And I've invited like the most exciting guest for the first episode, which is the founders of Capella.
Yes, sir.
And not to be pretentious, but just to tell the story and give some information about why we're doing this. So my name is Jacob. I'm the CEO of Capella Entertainment. And this is Jonah.
Hi, I'm Jonah. So I'm the operational manager of Capella Records, and I founded Capella with these two guys.
Yeah. And Moy?
So I'm Moy. Call me Mo, I think. But yeah, and I'm the MD of Capella Entertainment.
And we'll talk
Records.
we'll talk about what all this means, because it kind of seems like a bit out of context.
Yeah.
But we're going to use this episode introducing us, introducing what we're doing, where we came from, where we're going, and actually just set the scene for the podcast, because the vision of this podcast is addressing a small niche audience that maybe hasn't had a lot of podcasts before, and that's about music entrepreneurship. And we're on the journey ourselves. We have been on a long journey where we didn't really know what we were doing, and now we know a bit more. We have a company that does exist and seems like could do some interesting things in the future. And we're going to use this podcast in interviewing a lot of different guests with different perspectives, telling different stories that hopefully we can learn from and use, and the audience can learn from and use. So that's like sort of the purpose. But it's kind of funny because I met you guys in a weird context. So I'm actually from Denmark, and we speak English together because we've spoken English together the whole time. I'm sort of becoming natural in Norwegian, but not really.
Depends on who you ask.
Yeah, but I'm from Copenhagen, and I've been in the music industry for quite a while. I think myself, I've been doing it full time for 12 years. I'm turning 30 today.
Happy birthday.
So yes,
Happy
I'm
birthday.
officially
Happy
adult
birthday.
now. And so now we can do a podcast.
Yeah.
But I come from Copenhagen, and I have a master's in music, but I've been doing entrepreneurship within the music industry my whole life. Well, my whole grown-up life. Since I was 18, I started my first company. And 3 years ago, I moved to Norway because my wife is from here, and we had a couple of kids, so it was natural to get here. And here is Stavanger in Norway. And really, just to set the scene, maybe you guys could just talk about what does Stavanger mean, like music-wise, because it's quite a funny city.
Yeah. Stavanger, like music-wise, I would say it's been lacking a lot of things. I would say definitely the more ambitious people that kind of want to create and build something bigger. So that's what I think is a bit interesting about when you came here, because you did a lot of research on what is the music industry in Stavanger.
Yeah.
And I don't think you found anyone quite as like-minded as yourself, or as ambitious, if that's the right word. But
yeah, I don't know if ambitious, but at least like there wasn't a lot of community or structure to it.
Yeah. So then instead you found a couple of young dreamers that you inspired, and we became a part of your journey, I would say.
Yeah. So what I actually did is I before I moved here, I had, I think, 50 meetings with different people, just talking to them, what are you doing in the city within music, and trying to sort of understand the city. And what I really realized is there's so little structure, and all the talent that's made in the city just disappears over time. And like, because you're a music producer, and I've been doing that for a lot of years, and you definitely felt that, I guess, the lack of community and opportunities in the city.
Non-existent.
Yeah.
It wasn't a place you can explore as a producer. Like, I didn't know nothing about songwriting, about collaboration, alone in my room in the studio for like 7 years straight.
Yeah.
Before you came into the picture.
And for the context of this podcast, that's a really interesting example, because we live in a region that's fairly large. There's like around 400,000 people here, and there's really no structural opportunities for music. And that is why we're doing what we do, but we'll take a bit of a journey to explain that. But what I practically did is I located around 80 to 100 different talents in the region, songwriters, producers, artists, and starting setting up co-write sessions.
Yeah.
And not to confuse people, but I've also had a few other companies before Capella. One of them is a publishing company that I still own called Mantic Music Group. And we live from setting up session creatively. So I did that for a lot of these artists, producers, songwriters that had no experience with collaboration. And from that, I met you guys. And what was really interesting about you and me is I sort of saw you as some sort of talent deep down, even though you were a complete noob.
Yep.
And brought you to the studio and a bit like highlight the studio and try to explore your artistry a bit, but try to explain like you are an artist.
Yeah.
But what's been the journey with relation to your own artistry and Capella, and how has that been a part of our journey?
Well, so both me and Mo we're local boys. We're from here. We've always been here. I've always considered myself a creative in some sense, but I think before you came, I never kind of saw it as an opportunity to actually do this as my craft and do this every day.
Yeah.
So I mean, timing is a funny thing. You came around the time of the pandemic. I worked in a bar, got closed down. I had time to kind of look at what I wanted to do, and after having worked with you like for half a year and just kind of just dipping my toe into it, it became very obvious very fast that I'm gonna do this, and this is happening.
Yeah, and you were actually the first person I talked with about starting a label.
Yeah.
Because the city really needed that. And you were like, okay, I have my best friend Moy. He wants to be a part of it as well. And I didn't really know Moy that much as I knew you. And we started together, and that's sort of where our journey began. Well, I knew something, and you guys knew absolutely nothing. and we used you as a test bunny because you really hadn't been making music for a long time. So it's like, okay, how do we, one, start a label, and two, then actually have an artist project? So we were able to make a lot of the mistakes on you.
Yeah.
And it kind of for me, it started as a hobby project. Like, okay, I have Mantic Music Group, which is my other company, and I do audio engineering and music production. So I'll do that, and then I'll do this on the side in order to have something fun. And it slowly became more and more of a thing.
Yeah.
And something happened that we didn't really expect, because we signed a few artists, released a bit of music, and we quite early got a lot of like radio support for artists that were completely new, and kind of like, okay, wow, maybe this can become a company. So we didn't go all in yet, but like I had a 50% job somewhere, and you guys had like a 50% job, and then we just started working almost every single day at records. Yeah. And for you, how's that journey been, Moy? Because it's kind of like,
so I think like when we started off, before we met you, even with the pandemic and everything, me and Jonah had a lot of time. I'll just go a little bit back. And then that's how before we even met, me and Jonah were kind of, okay, let's do this music thing. I just got the studio. I've been trying to do music 7 last years. I started off like as an electronic producer and stuff like that. So I've visioned this for a long time. So we kind of were in the same frequency, like let's do music before we even met you, right? So when we met you, we were kind of all in, because we just want to collaborate. We've never collaborated. For us, it was just an insane thing. We could, meet people and producers and songwriters. And from there on, the first artist, you put us in sessions with, it just sparked something. I know for both of us. Me and Jonah are very much alike in some ways. That being one, we're like all in. Like, he's educated. I'm not. Didn't finish high school even. For me, it's like music was something I envisioned myself in. Like, so with label being proposed, I was just all in from the start. And then,
yeah. And I want to transition a bit and talk about, okay, what happened then? Because right now, Capella Entertainment is a company with 18 people.
Yeah.
And we're just grinding, and we have 7 different companies, music-related companies. And like in a short amount of time, like less than 2 years, this has happened, this transition.
Yeah.
So what happened for me, at least, is I'm a creator. I used to be a songwriter producer, but that didn't quite seem as satisfying enough for me, just because it's very like, you need to work years and years and years in your craft, and I'm not that patient. So for me, like, there's potentially a playground here for me to create. And that's what really happened, is like we created community, and we created some sort of success with the artists. And then it's like, okay, we have a label. That's losing a lot of money.
Mhm.
Then we're like, okay, let's get an investor on board. And this is where the really interesting side of the story happens. Because in music in general, in the music industry, getting investors in music companies are really hard for many different reasons. I think the primary reasons are that people who are music entrepreneurs or starting companies don't know how to talk the same language as investors. They don't know how to communicate their worth in a good enough way for them to be convincing.
Yeah.
And I had that because I've started a few different companies. I had a company called Timbre once 4 years ago. And we were all about building a platform democratizing capital investment in the music industry or in IP rights. And that sounds a bit complicated, but basically it means that you can value what music is worth when it succeeds. And then you can, for me, describe we will succeed at one point, and that's going to be the hypothetical value. And then suddenly you sort of speak a language that's almost like a tech investment. Like, we're going to create this product, and we're going to succeed with this product, and we're going to sell this product. And suddenly investors understood, oh, that's what you're doing. Sure. They didn't know anything about music, but they understood tech and then understood startups. So we got a first investor, and we never really stopped. Then we just, we have 14 investors now and like 25 different investments. And it's not raising money just to raise money. Like, there's a point. So what happened is we started a booking company because we know, okay, we're spending a lot of money on records. Luckily, we're getting some investment, but like the money's just like running out. Like, so we got to get some live jobs. So we started a new company, a booking company. And that started to make money. I'm like, oh, nice. And it suddenly dawned on me like, oh, this could actually be a creative playground. We're building businesses. And that's sort of what we've done since. We've started a promotion company that promotes concerts. We have a media company. We have a ticketing company. And we have a few other companies and projects we're working on in the future. And Capella Entertainment today has become a hub of music startups with different founders that we can help inspire, build, and get financing to. And that's sort of been key. So you guys came from like being bartenders, no education,
not knowing
music
anything
producers.
about. So like before, and I have a point because like before we started booking, we didn't kind of know why. We just followed you. So every time you proposed something, we were very supportive, right? So you were in the front of leading. So we started together, of course, but you were you'd say something like, yeah, we should start doing booking. We had no freaking idea what booking, like why. We have like, a small understanding. But I think with every company, like you empowered us in a way to like just think a bit different. So we were very supportive, when other people weren't, just because we believed. We did records. That went really good. And, started off really good. So booking and the other companies also, likewise, like you were in the front, and then we gradually understood why.
And I think a big part of what we've been doing is, finding and locating the people that we can bring on to the team. Because, we started out as 3 people, and then suddenly, like 8 months ago, we just started finding, or the people found us almost. And now we're 18.
And full transparency, like most people are on salary, but not comparable to what they would have anywhere else.
Not at all. No.
It's really a founder's journey for all of us. Yes. So what we've created is a founder's community surrounding around music. And that's the unique thing. It's like, okay, it's not just 1 or 2 founders that carries this vision. It's so many people who buys into what we are. And we're a company with a vision of becoming the biggest in the Nordics on music and media entertainment. And we really about fairness, we're about accessibility, we're about creating opportunities that are sustainable financially. And that's something we've been working around because the music industry, at least from my perspective and most perspectives, is sort of like a really messed up place. And a lot of artists really don't make a living, and you can't just blame the industry in that. But there's not a lot of structures and intention about creating opportunities for the sustainability of the artist. And I think that's sort of the movement locally we've created. But how has it been for you guys? Because now we're a company, and you never had the vision or dream of becoming part of such. Like, how does that feel for you guys?
I think like, once in a while I stop and I just kind of, oh shit, this is pretty big. And like, and then with the people we're working with, and just like kind of, it's insane. But most of the time, you just keep on going, just kind of forget that you're in the midst of it, right? So you don't kind of, the achievements are kind of blurry.
Yeah.
Just you see like things you need to fix and stuff like that. But once in a while, I'm like, holy shit, this is freaking insane. This is really insane in Stavanger.
Yeah.
Never ever thought in my life that I would do something similar, even close to this.
Yeah, and that's also what's really interesting, because right now we're at a point as a company where we have created something, but we're still not like hugely sustainable or have a lot of success. What we have is we have community and momentum. We have a lot of ideas and people. And we wanted to kind of like document our journey with this podcast. And when we bring in guests, it's going to surround like the problems we are facing. And the real intention, and I said it a bit in the start, is creating some sort of content that people can follow with the same ambitions of becoming entrepreneurs within music.
Exactly.
And using the example of you guys, like you had nothing.
Clueless.
And like,
I feel like we've said that a couple times now. Yeah, I think they get the point.
But I just really want to say how clueless you guys were.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about that is we can create a company around that. And what we've been really lucky with is having mentors around us. And we had vision, we had some sort of experience. And hopefully this podcast will bring some new perspectives for people that wants to build in this amazing industry that's still like really messed up financially.
Yeah. I mean, you know, we're 2.5 years in, but we're still kind of surviving on, you know, dreams and passion. And you know the saying, they say, find a job that you love and you won't work a day in your life. I thought that was like, that's just
good quoting.
that's mumbo jumbo, you know. But then somehow we just got into it, and I'm hoping that, you know, maybe this podcast could show people that if you really believe in something, and if you have the right people around you, you can dream pretty big.
Yeah. And I want to define a bit where we are now. So we've redefined the company as a venture studio. And what does that mean? The best way to describe it is a movie studio. So a movie studio has ideas, they have scripts, they have actors, producers, and what they do is they gather all these people and financing and marketing, and they make movies. A venture studio is the same thing. They make companies. And we want to do that within music and entertainment. And that's where we are now. We have, you know, I'm going to be honest in the podcast, we have around $400,000 in investment so far. That's in a Scandinavian level quite impressive because it's not really done. On an international level, it's nothing. So we're kind of like a really interesting space because, okay, we can attract capital. We can seem interesting. But we're nowhere near done. And we have a goal by 2030. We've created something amazing. Doesn't mean we're going to end there, but that's like our internal goal. I want to talk a bit about the audience for this podcast, because in a way, you guys are the audience.
Yeah.
Because what I've been quite lucky with, I think, is I've been exposed to a great network, and I have mentors around me that have been guiding me. And I think that's one of the many reasons that we are something now is because I've had these mentors. But that's been almost exclusively available to me because it's a private network. And that's sort of what I want to open up for, is those conversations. So do you think you need this kind of podcast?
Oh yeah. No, if I'd had this podcast that we're trying to create now back 2.5 years ago, when you kind of first started taking us under your wing, I mean, I think it would have helped a lot just having some perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, the things that I've learned since we first started has been, I mean, the learning curve has just skyrocketed.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's also because that's been my, I've been telling you what people have been telling me, but instead, if you could get it directly from the source in a way, like instead of like when we're talking about specific topics, when it comes to like getting investment in the music industry.
Yeah.
That's just been my way of communicating and maybe transferring the knowledge of experts that I've talked with. And because it's not just going to be like dry information about specific topics, it's going to be from a personal angle, like, okay, we're venture studio or music company. We're struggling understanding this topic or these perspectives. Can you bring some perspective to it and tell your own story? And I think that's what's really interesting.
Yeah.
If I've had this podcast when we started this off, it's just like the small stuff. I started off as a producer, right? I was only thinking about becoming this producer. Didn't see any other like roles I could have in the music industry. Weren't interested in the music industry. I think like this podcast will shed some light for me as well. Listening back to it, it's like I went from only wanting to being a producer to getting some insight in the industry and gradually getting some more, being exposed to information, actually doing a lot of stuff I never thought I would. And then now I'm kind of shifting into not being a producer anymore. And that's pretty interesting. Like in 2.5 years, last 10 years, only thing I dreamt of and envisioned was me as the biggest, hottest producer. Now I'm like, okay, maybe I'll get my fix somewhere else. And that happened gradually, like small things, not the big questions we're talking about now, but like just gradually. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, guys. It's been really pleasure recording this first episode with you. And we've sort of gone through the journey of like why we started it and where we've been. And there's a lot more to unfold to that story. And we'll talk more about that. Next time we're going to speak, it's going to be in a few episodes. It's going to be about where we are now, what needs to change in the music industry, and how we see it could happen. And it's a really interesting journey that's unfolding, and it's happening new things at the office every single month. So I'm really excited to follow like this our own story in this podcast as we move on. But thank you so much, and I hope you guys can tune into the next couple of episodes. This is Jonah, this is Moe, I'm Jacob, we're Capella Entertainment. Thank you so much for listening.